So on August the 6th, 1945, when the first atom bomb fell on Hiroshima, Arrupe and his group were just outside the city limits. They heard it, and everything blew apart in the house. They didn't know what it was.
The fate of Father Arrupe and his novices is later filmed for the record by the American government.
A group of Jesuits who were teaching in Hiroshima witnessed and survived the explosion. Between 0 Point and the main building of the novitiate of Jesuits was a hill which served to lessen the intensity of the blast. Yet, despite this protection, the glass in the doors of the main entrance foyer were shattered, and the paneled ceiling was blown loose by the force of the explosion occurring 4 miles away.
Father, would you introduce yourself, please?
In future years, Arrupe would be called upon many times to tell his story, beginning immediately with U.S. newspaper reporters and military investigators.
What were you doing in Hiroshima at the time of the explosion?
Suddenly, we saw a blinding light, like a flash of magnesium. We heard a formidable explosion. After about 15 minutes, we noticed that in the direction of the city, dense smoke arose. We climbed a hill to get a better view. Before us was a decimated Hiroshima.
Father Arrupe, he's been famous for that, for having been one of the witnesses of the falling of the first atomic bomb.
I shall never forget my first sight of what was the result of the atomic bomb. A group of young women 18 to 20 years old clinging to one another as they dragged themselves along the road. On and on they came, a steady procession numbering some 150,000.
Arrupe had a lot of medical experience. He had stopped studying just short of becoming a doctor. So he was picking glass out of people's backs. He found some boric acid and a little water, and it was a powder, and it turned out that was a very good thing for the burns. But they dealt with people there. Then they took a lot of them back to the novitiate with them and kept some of them for a year. So this was all part of his formation.
Yo creo que es fundamental. Yo comienzo mi biografía.
I think it's fundamental. I begin my biography with the moment the bomb was dropped onto Hiroshima, and he's there below. In the burst, the spiritual explosion that is produced in him at the moment he stops and sees the watchtower stop at 8:15. The tremendous energy that results helps cure 150 sick who show up at his hospital thanks to a bottle of boric acid that he finds.
Assuredly, it was in such moments of tragedy that we felt God most near to us.
And this seems to have marked him very much. A kind of feeling of having been close to the end of the world, to have been present to one of the most dramatic events of the history of mankind. That remained with Arrupe, I think.
Ever after that, he could never stand violence. He'd say, violence, no, to be avoided no matter what the cost.
The 1960s erupt in a different kind of explosion. Social upheavals that alter the course of world events more extensively, perhaps, than even the atomic bomb. Ecclesiastical upheavals are triggered within the Catholic Church by the election of Pope John XXIII, who throws open church windows to the winds of change. His encyclical Pacem in Terris will address not just Catholics, but all men of goodwill, demonstrating fresh openness to the world. Only 90 days after his election, he unexpectedly invites all the bishops from around the globe to gather in Rome to re-examine the stance of the Catholic Church in a changing world. This 21st Ecumenical Council, the first in almost a century, becomes a major news event.
Considered one of the most important councils in Catholic Church history, Vatican II saw 2,400 bishops and other prelates in 168 sessions from October 1962. The council produced 16 documents designed to modernize the role of the Church in world affairs.
The council would meet in 4 sessions over 4 years. Its crowning document, the Pastoral Constitution on the Church in the Modern World, would address itself without hesitation not only to the sons and daughters of the Church and to all who invoke the name of Christ, but to the whole of humanity. The council's decrees will inspire and guide Pedro Arrupe as Jesuits become leaders in the implementation of the Church's modernization. Pope John XXIII dies before the council is completed and is succeeded by Pope Paul VI, who oversees the conclusion of the council. Shortly after the death of Pope John XXIII, the Superior General of the Jesuits, sometimes called the Black Pope, Father Janssens, also dies, and Jesuits from around the world gather to elect his successor. Among the gathering Jesuits was the president of Fordham University, Father Vincent O'Keefe.
In 1965, we had what we call a general congregation. This is our highest legislative body in the society. And so it's a meeting of Jesuits from all around the world, Jesuits who are elected in their own province to go to the big meeting in Rome.
Immersed in the spirit of the Second Vatican Council, Jesuits face their own challenges of change. Priorities need to be examined. Commitment to justice rises for special consideration. On the third ballot, the General Congregation elects Pedro